So basically, I have this problem with live service games. Basically, I disagree with how they work, just like from an artistic perspective. Season 6 of Apex Legends really has me worried. I honestly said to my friend today, I don't know, like I might just lose interest in Apex when the season drops, because every time something is added to the game or changed, it messes with the game's core so radically that the entire gameplay experience is going to be different. Like if you add or like change a gun, you've basically just changed a major part of the game. Like I don't even know how many guns there are, but one thing they said is that I've heard anyway, I guess they haven't really said it, is that R99 is going to be a care package weapon instead of just something that you can find on the ground, like it's always been since the start of the game. And that is definitely the thing that has me the most concerned. And they're also like bringing back the devotion. I don't know what's up with that. It's just really weird, like how every season they just like change things. And I'm sure like it is like they're making it balanced, but they're still just messing with the game so fundamentally that I just get like every time, like this last season, season 5, I personally liked the change with the Peacekeeper and the Mastiff, just because I just liked the Mastiff better, but also because the weapons are so similar that it wasn't like that big of a deal. I'm not satisfied with the way that Respawn is, if it's even Respawn's fault, they have to develop the game like this. I don't like the way that it's being developed, where it feels like things are just changing more just to be kept fresh and interesting, rather than to bring the game to a near perfect state where you could call it finished. I don't necessarily know that they don't have an end goal, but it really doesn't seem like it, or at least they're still like messing with things now until they get to that end goal, and that's really weird. Like if they were doing that, if they were just changing things up and like keeping it fresh and new up until that, like they got to that point, like they might know what they want the game to look like, but they're still like making it radically different before they get to that point. That would be really weird. What I feel like is going on is each season they're trying to like think of ways that they could keep players interested. And so they're like, okay, gang, like, what do we want to do, like, this season? Or I mean, they've already, like, got them all planned out, don't they? Like, most of them. Up until, like, season 12 or something? I have no clue. But I would be interested to know, like, whether or not right now they have plans to just, like, change the rotation of, like, care package weapons. Like, I think that's, I don't know, it's really weird. I would just rather there be certain weapons that are care package weapons, and they are always that, and it doesn't change between seasons. I don't like coming, like leaving a game and then coming back to it, and then everything is like different, and like suddenly like this gun has like a completely different purpose or whatever. But of course then, like, the purpose of the live service and like them changing all this stuff is to keep you interested so you don't leave in the first place, because like that's the most profitable for them, right? I don't think that what they're doing is a bad business move. I just don't agree with it artistically at all. I just think that when you're making a game, you should be aiming for a specific goal of like a vision of what you want that game to look like. And when you're updating it, you should have an idea of what you want the game to be like when it's finished. Like you shouldn't just keep adding to a game just to keep people interested. Like I feel like that's kind of what they're doing with Minecraft lately. Like I don't think Mojang even knows what they're doing with Minecraft. I just think that they're coming up with ideas and then they're putting them in the game. Like they're not, there's no like end goal with Minecraft, I don't think. They're just trying to make sure that the game's life just lives as long as it can. I don't think that they're thinking about what they're really adding to Minecraft that much. Like I don't think it all seems just all over the place. Like when I look at Minecraft, I don't know, like it doesn't seem like cohesive, I guess. It's just like, okay, now suddenly there's bees. Like what is that? I don't know. But anyway, I'm really worried about Apex Legends because I love the game a lot at this point, and I don't want it to change beyond like what I like it. I like it how it is right now. And every time they add a legend, or they add a weapon, or they change like the rotation of the care package weapons or whatever, or like a map change, just anytime you do anything, right, you risk changing the game to be something else than what it was and what people liked. Every time I talk about this with my friend, the main example that I bring up is Overwatch, because I played Overwatch like since it came out for like not until today, obviously, but like from the day it came out till like about a year later, maybe a bit more. It was when they changed how Mercy's ultimate worked, and essentially like that by itself changed how much the game played, that I just quit. Like as soon as that change went live, I just stopped playing, because the game at that point just wasn't what it was before. Like it just wasn't the same game, because Mercy as a character was like in every single game on both teams. She was so prominent that changed quite a lot. And I also felt like the game was just going to start declining from there. And honestly, from what I've heard, it kind of did. Like I don't know what the frick they're doing with like the role queue thing. Like even in like that's a quick play thing in Overwatch. Like they made a role queue so that like you queue as a certain role, like tank, healer, or like DPS or whatever, and then you can only play one of those characters when you actually join in the game. And like maybe that could be a competitive thing, but for quick play, that's just retarded. And it's honestly just like, even I don't know, that's just stupid. I hate it. That sounds like a terrible, just I don't know if this is really like relevant at all, but basically I just felt like the game was going to start declining from there, and it did, from what I've heard. Like people still play it a lot, but I don't. And I don't really believe a game is just going to like be killed even if it's changed majorly, because like I still think Overwatch is a decent game. And I'm not going to like argue like the balance of the Mercy change that made me quit, but I do think that they changed it so radically that it basically changed fundamentally what the game was, and I wasn't happy with it. I suspect there was a lot of other people that weren't happy with that, and it kind of caused them to leave too. Like, have you ever considered that the reason you stopped, like, I've seen so many videos where it's like, here's why I stopped playing Overwatch, and it's blaming like the stuff that you'd expect, like, you know, I'm not even gonna get into it, but I've never heard anybody say it's because the game like just changed and they didn't like it anymore. Have you ever considered that you just stopped playing Overwatch because, holy cow, I'm getting so off track. Basically, the game changed and it was no longer the game that I loved. And I think that over time, just the game has changed and it's just a different game, and that's why a lot of people left. And I'm worried that Apex Legends is going to be the same way. I think that if they just keep changing stuff just to keep it fresh and new, and they're not trying to like have an end goal and like just finish the game and then have it just done, right? As far as like gameplay goes, I feel like people are going to stop playing, because I don't like when things are changing all the time in the game I'm playing. I want to, like I said earlier, I want to be able to leave a game and come back to it like a month later and for things to be the same. I want to leave it and come back to it a year later and for things to be the same, relatively. Like, I get like balance changes, like slight stuff, but there's a difference between, say, like changing Pathfinder's grapple cooldown and if they were to like remove the grapple, right? Like, there's a big difference there. This change that they're going to do supposedly in Season 6, where they're putting the R99 as a care package weapon, and now like they're adding in the Volt. I have no idea what the Volt is going to do because I haven't like tested it yet. I have a feeling it's pretty much just going to like replace the R99 in some capacity, but it's not going to be the same thing. And it's just so weird. Like, that's such a big change. Like, R99 is one of the most popular weapons, and they're basically just going to remove it from the normal loot pool. and it like they're not removing it from the game, like, but it's gonna have a different purpose now. It's gonna be like better than it is because you're gonna find it in a care package, and it's just gonna destroy people. This changes the game so much, honestly, because it's such an incredibly popular weapon. So many people use the R99. It's insane. And now all those people that are using the R99, they're going to be using something else now. That's going to change a lot. And if you liked running the R99 every game, you can't do that in Season 6 anymore. And that's just really, really weird to me. That they would make a change like that. Like, at least when they swapped the Peacekeeper and the Mastiff, the weapons did have essentially the same role. Maybe this, honestly, the cat bumped the mic. Damn you. Okay, so basically, maybe the Volt, honestly, will kind of act the way that, like, with the Peacekeeper and the Mastiff, the weapons are basically had the same role. They basically did like the same thing if they acted a bit differently, so it wasn't really like that big of a change. Honestly, people barely reacted to that, I think. Maybe the Volt is basically going to be the R99, like the same thing, so it'll like fill the role. But it's kind of like, why would you add the weapon if it's basically like why would you do that in the first place? And the reason is because they're trying to keep the game fresh. It's not like they're just trying to keep it interesting. That's all. I don't think that they're trying to polish the game real hard. I mean, don't get me wrong, like Apex is one of the most polished games ever, but they're not like bringing it right now to a state where it could sit and just be that way. Like, I have a feeling that the R99 is going to come back eventually, but it's just really weird that they're moving it to the care package right now. Also, the Devotion is back into the normal weapons. I don't know what's up with that. I don't get it. Like, all these weapons are being swapped around. Here's the ultimate proof, I think, that a lot of these changes aren't necessarily like, they're more focused on just keeping the game interesting rather than to like just make it more fun and like just better for the player. Limited time modes just aren't always available. Why wouldn't, like, the modes already exist, like they've been made and people played them. Why not just have the limited time modes like on a cycle that they just run through? Like every week there's just a different mode on, or maybe even every day. Or like every hour or whatever. I don't know. But it's like, those game modes have been made, but they're not in the game right now. So that when they are put in the game, it's exciting and it's new. And you're like, oh, I gotta play the game right now, because right now is when the limited time mode is on. I don't know. I just don't like the practice where they have something and then they just like take it away. And I really do think that pretty much the only reason they're taking it away is just to keep people interested when it comes back. Like, I don't know. It just seems like I don't want to attribute motivation to anybody. I have no idea how like things work over at Respawn or like what EA is doing or whatever. I'm just saying, like, I don't like this practice. I don't think that I don't think it's good. Like, that's it, basically. I don't know whose fault it is. I'm not trying to like blame anybody, but I do think like it is kind of a nasty tactic to use. Like, I don't know. Another game I always talk about when I talk about this thing where I'm like I have this opinion, you know, that like games should be brought to a state of completion and then basically left there, and like you know you can do like tweaks and like bug fixes. You can like change some stats, the weapons and stuff a little bit, but like don't change it at its core. Like, there's a difference between those things, like between balance changes and like changing an ability, like Mercy's ultimate. Like, a balance change would have just been like Mercy's ultimate charges slower, but instead they just changed it entirely. They changed the ability entirely. I don't have a problem with balance changes. I have a problem when they change stuff like that. Basically, the idea is that I've put time and money into a game, and I've grown attached to it, and I want it to stay relatively the same because I like it the way it is. So it's annoying when something changes, even if it's like, even like I said earlier, like they might, I believe that they will bring the R99 back as a regular weapon, but I have a problem with them taking it out of the regular like pool in the first place. I think I was saying this a minute ago. Basically, the example I always bring up of a game that, like, I feel like it got itself. Well, I'll say it's Team Fortress 2, and I think Valve does this anyway. They just get like games to a state where they think they're good, and they just like that's the game. Like then they move on. Like they'll like update like little bits of things, you know. Team Fortress 2 gets like new weapons sometimes. But I think part of the reason why Team Fortress 2 has been so popular all this time is because it's just a good game. And because it's been the same thing pretty much this entire time. The community is bound to change, but like the game itself doesn't really change. Like it's mostly been the same thing at its core. Like there's different maps and stuff that they'll add, but Team Fortress 2 has basically been the same thing. Like you see in the Team Fortress 2 community like all the time, like they're complaining about there being no updates, but it isn't really causing anybody to leave the game because the game is just that good, because the developers had the philosophy of like to make a good game that people play because it's good, not because like there's something interesting happening and like new in it, right? People are still playing the game because it's just so damn good, right? And again, I'd like to say that like I do think that like as far as business goes, it is a better decision to like constantly update and like change the game as Apex is doing. I just don't agree with it artistically. I don't appreciate it just from like a game philosophy perspective, essentially. And I don't think it's really good to players, to be completely honest. I think I've pretty much said almost everything there is to say. Let me try to think of some like counter arguments that people might say. A different argument would be like one argument might be that it's just a different style, you know, like there's not necessarily anything wrong with like it doing it one way or the other, and I think that's just wrong. Like I think that there are certain like philosophies that are just better than others, and I think that the philosophy of just designing a game with the intent to complete it and like finish it and then stop messing with it and just trying to make a good game is better than the idea of constantly updating and changing a game to keep it like fun and interesting. Like I just don't think, I just think that one is better than the other, essentially. I think that one results in better games. Saying like one philosophy isn't superior to another is kind of like saying something like different cultures aren't superior to each other. And it's kind of just like wrong, regardless of what we want to think. Sure, like there might be like pros and cons to both. But I think that there's like one is just objectively better than the other, I think. Or at least they might be objectively better if you're like depending on the goal you're trying to do. Like if you're trying to make money, then the strategy that like Apex Legends is doing probably better. I honestly don't know how much money like Apex has made or will make like compared to something like Team Fortress 2. I don't really know if it would be fair to like compare the two yet, because yeah, we don't like know how much money Apex will make, and Team Fortress has just been out longer. So, and like I said before a few times, like this isn't about like the business strategy of it. This is about like my argument is about like which is better artistically to make a good game. And I do think that the strategy of trying to build a game to near perfection and to stop messing with it and just like let it be the way that it is, so that the people that do enjoy it can enjoy it as it is, and it won't change, so that people don't like it anymore. I left Overwatch because like I loved the game, but it just changed to the extent that it wasn't the same game that I had fell in love with. And I'm just worried that that is going to happen to Apex. And I really, really like Apex. And I don't want Apex to change from what I like, but I think that eventually it will. Eventually there's going to be like a bunch of different characters, and though like a character and a weapon, like those are two like the biggest things that they're just going to change the game at its core very radically. So every time you introduce one, you are changing the game fundamentally. Like I was gonna say it's a risk, but you actually are. You're just completely changing the game fundamentally at its core. Like every season, Apex Legends has essentially been a different game, in my opinion, or at least a different like iterations of the same game. That's just something that I wanted to kind of like rant about for a while. So I just kind of thought I would record me saying this. Yeah, that's it.